Welcome back on Wall Street. We got a big cap rally underway. The Dow Jones Industrial Average just about 70 points away from an all-time high. Looks like we are going to close at the second highest level and certainly the best this year. We've got big caps really driving the action, and certainly the financials and technology stocks are among the leadership groups. The S&P 500, get this, at a 5.5-year high today, and we're also seeing the Nasdaq do well. Also looking at technology, a leadership group, Dylan.
All right. Well, the market, interestingly enough, really showing strong performance among the economically sensitive names. Take a look at the Morgan Stanley Cyclical Index. The ticker is CYC relative to the consumer names. And you see the cyclicals in percentage terms outperforming by triple this consumer index. Now, the other interesting dynamic here is that the consumer index is still higher. So it's not that you have the cyclicals rising and the consumer names falling. It's just that one is rising by a greater order of magnitude than the other. And this is a total opposite of what we saw last week, particularly on Thursday when they had that Philly Fed number that showed contraction, which is, again, an indication of manufacturing strength. First time we'd seen it in 3 years. And on that day, you had Caterpillar absolutely beat up. Well, take a look at Caterpillar today, CAT. The ticker on the name. And this is why everybody's asking the question, who's right, bond market or stock market? Because the stock market is at the very least near highs for the year. The Dow is approaching highs forever. And yet we've got a bond market that continues to show expectations not only of contraction, but potentially of a recession, as remote as that may be. But here's Caterpillar, 2.4%. The advance, look at that, $65.90 a pop. And then if you look at the steel stocks, for instance, Nucor continues to do reasonably well after, again, a little bit of a beat up among some of the steel names, but you're seeing all those heavy old school industrial names doing very, very well. There's a look at Nucor. Look at Nucor today, 4.6% in this old steel company, $2.20 a pop to move up. Maria.
Yeah, and we're one of those old school companies and groups doing well. The autos, GM and Ford up about 3% on average apiece. GM is a Dow component. We've got 10 minutes before the close, and the Dow right now up 85 points. Nasdaq higher by 11.
And then there was a deluge of downgrades hitting a bunch of names on Wall Street today. Obviously didn't hit the headlines in the market, but we'll get those stories up to you all the same.
And then stay with us after the bell with profits and advertising rates down in the publishing world. Is starting up a new magazine a good investment? We'll have some answers and take a look at this niche offering in the second hour of the closing bell. Well, even if interesting look at companies there and where they are since January 2000 when the Dow was at its high. Even though we have a very good market today, we've got a host of downgrades taking center stage as well. We've got analyst calls out on several big names across a number of sectors. CNBC's Melissa Lee takes a closer look at the downgrade picture. Melissa.
Hi there, Maria. And we start off with a name that was in the news yesterday, and that is Altria MO.
At 5 minutes to the closing bell. Dow Jones Industrial Average good for 86. The Nasdaq is good for 11 and change.
We'll be back next with the closing countdown, and then after the bell.
Commit the crime, do the time. 2 white-collar criminals now paying the price. Just as the FBI vows to stop another kind of financial fraud. This isn't your father's Benz. Mercedes' new drive to become more state-of-the-art. Will it put younger buyers behind the wheel? It's all ahead in the second hour of the closing bell.
The experts told Will.
Well, the economically sensitive names, the Caterpillars, the steel companies, the Boeings of this world, the automakers even, will lead the Dow Jones Industrial Average to a new closing high for the year today. 91 points the advance on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The old closing high was 11,642. Right now you're at 11,667. So strong consumer confidence data this morning, launching off this rally, and we'll go out at that level. The NASDAQ not so shabby. The technology names having a very good day. There were some exceptions. It is earnings warning season. PMCC are under some pressure today. But that was a pretty isolated event. Otherwise, things very strong. And the consumer names, while not as strong as those cyclical names, doing plenty fine here. So you got to go out on a record. The conundrum continues here as the bond market predicts slowdown and the stock market exudes optimism. They do it again today with the Dow now moving to a 92-point advance as the Dow Jones Industrial Average goes out on the second day. The closing bell rings here, and the closing bell continues right now with Maria Bartiromo.
Breaking news. Hi, everybody. Fresh market milestones on Wall Street tonight as a big cap rally takes hold and the markets rally strongly in the final hour of trading and flirt with the record books while doing so. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is at the second highest close on record. It is closing tonight at the highest level of 2006, and it is about 70 points away from the all-time high of 11,722. That level reached back in January of the year 2000. One of the early catalysts to this market, consumer confidence rebounding in September to a level of 104.5 after falling to a revised 9-month low of 100.2 the month before. Looks like lower gasoline prices is certainly helping sentiment. The technology sector also strong on Wall Street today. Take a look. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ doing well. In fact, the NASDAQ finishing up 0.5%, and the S&P 500 tonight at new 5.5-year highs at 1336. It was very much a broad-based rally. We have all the market action covered for you. Bob Pisani is our eye on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Rick Santelli is at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Bob, give us the details.
You know, there's really one big debate going on down here, Maria, and it's this one. Is the rally that we're seeing this week really real, or is this just a lot of end-of-the-quarter nonsense? Remember, we have been rallying into the end of the quarter. That sucks in portfolio managers who've been sitting on the sidelines. They have to get into the market. Is it real or is it not? Now, Maria is right. We had consumer confidence that was strong. We also had the Richmond Federal Reserve very strong today, contradicting the Philly Fed last week that was very weak. Both of these data points gave buyers a little bit of comfort that they were doing the right thing by getting into the market. Theoretically, we had a lot of negative news today, but it didn't hurt the stock market. Another query, another question mark for traders. Look at some of these stocks. Lowe's came out. Sales below expectations, they said. Full-year earnings will be at the low end of their guidance, and yet Lowe's did not do bad on the day. Most of the retail stocks did very, very well throughout the day, and you see Lowe's ending to the upside. We saw Lennar coming out earlier in the day, the big home builder, lower guidance for the current quarter. Lennar, many of the housing stocks have been down for a while, but moving sideways for the last couple of months. Lennar, as you can see, basically on the upside. All the home builders also did very well, didn't go down. Nordstrom and the retailers did very well. Nordstrom hit historic highs last week. Credit Suisse tried to move it down a little bit today. They downgraded it on valuation to some of the other retailers. The bottom line, though, Nordstrom down just a little bit here, but by and large, all the other retailers were to the upside. Finally, let me just talk a little bit here about Whirlpool. I missed that one. Downgraded at Citigroup today, but Whirlpool to the upside. Look at some of the cyclical stocks to close the day out here. Nike, Target, Jones in New York, Sherwin-Williams, all of these cyclical stocks in the retail area, all of them doing very, very well today. Maria, back to you.
All right, Bob, thanks so much. What are we hearing from the bond market? Meanwhile, Rick Santelli, how was the action over there in Chicago?
Well, you know, Maria, the big debate is, can both these markets coexist? Can you have a pit like the S&Ps or any of the stock market indices doing so well and still have interest rates moving down? How do you relate them? Well, first of all, let's look at what's going on today. Intraday 2-year note yield jumped about 7 basis points. Thanks
so much, Rick. Meanwhile, oil prices retreated this session. Light sweet crude ended today around $61 a barrel. And, of course, we know that it came all the way down from $78 a barrel. Crude oil bouncing earlier when the cartels